Where is all the water?
Over 97% of the world's water lies in the oceans and is too salty to drink or to irrigate crops with. Except when the water is cleaned through a desalination plant, which is not done very often. About 2.8% of the world's water supply is fresh water. Of that 2.8%, about 2% is frozen in glaciers and ice sheets. This leaves only about 0.8% of the world's water that is accessible through aquifers, streams, lakes, and in the atmosphere. The water that we use primarily comes from this 0.8%.
What was the first city to have more than 1 million people?
During ancient times, Rome was the world's first city to have a population larger than 1 million. Rome's population declined during the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century. And a city with a population of 1 million wasn't again seen until the early 19th century in London.
What is a glacier?
A glacier is a mass of ice that stays frozen throughout the year and flows downhill. Glaciers are capable of carving rock with their weight and slow, steady movement. They are responsible for the stunning landscape of Yosemite National Park in California. Large glaciers that cover the land are also known as ice sheets.
What is the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center?
Administered by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and based in Hawaii and Alaska. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is the command center for monitoring and warning all nations which may be affected by a tsunami, with data from a network of 39 detection buoys called the Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami Array. The center can issue alerts of real-time earthquake activity in the Pacific Basin, and the tsunamis that may result, giving residents affected time to head to safe ground, away from low-lying coastal areas.
How, why, and how much does magnetic north move?
Scientists aren't sure why the Earth's magnetic pole moves, only that it does. The amount of movement varies, but it's never more than a few miles each year.
Where is Camelot?
The legendary 6th century castle of King Arthur has been said to be located either near Exeter or Winchester, England. Camelot was not only the home of King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, but was also the location of the Round Table and its famous knights.
What is the Royal Flying Doctor Service?
Created in 1928, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, RFDS, is a charity organization established to provide healthcare and emergency services to the sparse population of Australia's outback. With 38 aircraft, the RFDS averages over 80 flights a day, helping more than 135,000 people per year.
How prevalent is AIDS in Africa?
Approximately 22.5 million Africans have AIDS, which makes up 64% of the world's AIDS cases. Almost all AIDS transmission in Africa is through heterosexual intercourse. Approximately 2.3 million have died of AIDS-related illnesses in Africa.
Who was Kim Il-sung?
Sung was the leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea. From its inception in 1948 until his death in 1994. His son, Kim Jong-il, took power after his death, and leads the republic today. Kim Il-sung was worshipped by his people under a state ideology called Jij, which was a complex movement to establish a unique North Korean political movement independent of Marxist-Leninist ideals and the de-Stalinization of the Soviet Union in the late 1950s.
Why is the sky blue?
This is one of the world's most frequently pondered questions, and contrary to what some people believe, the sky's blue color is not due to the reflection of water. Light from the sun is composed of the spectrum of colors. When sunlight strikes the Earth's atmosphere, ultraviolet and blue waves of light are the most easily scattered by particles in the atmosphere. So, other colors of light continue to the Earth while blue and ultraviolet waves remain in the sky. Our eyes can't see ultraviolet light, so the sky appears the only color remaining that we can see, blue.
What city is known as the Earthquake City?
Charleston, South Carolina, claims the nickname Earthquake City. On August 31, 1886, Charleston suffered from the largest earthquake in history to strike the east coast of the United States. 60 were killed in the quake, which had an estimated Richter magnitude of 6.6.
Which city has the most taxis?
Congested Mexico City is home to more than 60,000 taxis among its 3.5 million automobiles. The city with the second greatest number of taxis is Mumbai, India, which has more than 55,000.
What is the difference between the Greater and Lesser Antilles?
The Greater Antilles refers to the four largest Caribbean islands: Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica. All smaller Caribbean islands make up the Lesser Antilles.
What is an aquifer?
An aquifer is an underground collection of water that is surrounded by rock. The creation and filling of an aquifer is a very slow process, as it relies upon water to percolate through the soil and rock layers and into the aquifer. An aquifer lies above a lower layer of rock that holds the water in place and keeps it from moving further underground.
How is a capital different from a capital?
The capital is a city and the capital is a building. The capital is located in the capital. To remember the difference, think about the O in capital as being the dome of a Capitol building. Capital cities are often the largest cities in a country or region.
How can I measure how much rain falls where I live?
Any container with a flat bottom and flat sides can measure rainfall. The width of the top of the container must be the same as at the bottom of the container. But the diameter does not matter. It could be a device purchased for measuring precipitation or something as simple as a coffee can.
Which countries give the highest proportion of their GNP in the form of aid to other countries?
Norway, Sweden, Luxembourg, Denmark, and the Netherlands each give nearly 1% of the value of all of their goods and services to the cause of foreign aid.
How can I obtain a flood map of my community?
The best way to see a flood insurance rate map, firm, for your area would be to contact your local government. Their planning or emergency management agency should have the firm maps available. Purchasing them from FEMA is not recommended because the maps change often and are best interpreted by a planning or emergency expert. What are basin and ranges? Basins and ranges are sets of valleys and mountains that are spaced close together. Most of Nevada and western Utah is composed of sets of basins and ranges.
What was the Nazis' plan for Madagascar?
In 1940, after the French defeat at the hands of the Germans, the Nazis developed a plan to forcibly relocate European Jews to the French colony of Madagascar. This plan never materialized, however, and the Nazis continued the extermination of Jews throughout Europe.
What revolution attempted to stop world hunger?
Begun in the 1960s, the Green Revolution was an attempt by developed countries and such international organizations as the United Nations to transfer agricultural technology to less developed countries. While the Green Revolution increased agricultural yields, it modified the ecology of traditional agricultural systems, such as through the use of chemical fertilizers, and has yet to cure world hunger.
Are all countries divided into 1-hour time zones?
No. China and some other countries do not divide their territory by time zones at all. Several countries use half-hour time zones, including Afghanistan, Australia, Burma, India, Iran, the Marquesas, and Venezuela. Also, the Canadian province of Newfoundland uses half-hour zones. Quarter-hour divisions are used in Nepal, as well as in some provinces, including the Chatham Islands.
Why do people live in floodplains?
People have lived in floodplains for thousands of years. Fertile land for agriculture lines the floodplain, and the nearby water source makes life easier. Unfortunately, when the river does flood, these communities are severely damaged and people suffer. Hazard mitigation, such as levees, dams, dikes and other structures, attempt to limit damage during floods. Sometimes, when the structures fail, such as a levee breaking, large areas are inundated with water. Inhabitants of floodplains must balance the risks with the rewards of living in such an unpredictable environment.
What is the Ring of Fire?
If you were to look at a map of the world's major earthquakes and volcanoes, you would notice a pattern circling the Pacific Ocean. This dense accumulation of earthquakes and volcanoes is known as the Ring of Fire. The ring is due to plate tectonics and the merger of the Pacific plate with other surrounding plates, which creates faults and seismic activity, especially Alaska, Japan, Oceania, and the west coasts of North and South America. along with volcanic mountain ranges such as the Cascades of the U.S. Pacific Northwest and the Andes of South America.
Where can I buy maps?
There are many places you can buy maps. Most large bookstores offer an extensive collection of local and foreign travel maps, wall maps, and atlases. Also, many cities have specialty travel and map stores that offer a larger and more varied collection of maps, as well as maps of more exotic locales. Maps are also available at many websites on the internet. Just put in the name of the place, region, city, or country that you wish to find, and you will discover both maps that are either free or available for purchase. Look for the most up-to-date maps when selecting a map from more than one available vendor.
How many time zones does the United States have?
The United States spans 9 time zones: Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific, Alaska, Hawaii, Aleutian, Samoa, Wake Island, and Guam.
How many people are projected to live on the planet in 2040?
It is estimated that there will be approximately 9.25 billion people on the planet by the year 2040. Even with a declining rate of growth.
What were Thomas Malthus' ideas on population growth?
In 1798, English clergyman Thomas Malthus wrote an essay on the principle of population, in which he described the problems of population growth. Malthus argued that the world's population grows faster than the food supply. But there are such checks as war, famine, disease, and disaster that limit the population.
How have the Kuril Islands kept World War II from ending?
Before World War II, Japan owned this chain of 4 islands located between Russia, south of the Kamchatka Peninsula, and Japan, north of Hokkaido. During the war, the then Soviet Union took control of the islands and hasn't given them back. Japan has been requesting their return, but to no avail. Because of the Kuril Island controversy, Japan has yet to sign a peace treaty with Russia declaring the end of World War II.
Which Southeast Asian country is one of the world's richest?
The tiny nation of Brunei, composed of just 2,226 square miles, 5,765 square kilometers. Located on the island of Borneo, is one of the world's richest countries. Brunei's wealth is based on its oil and gas exports. Sultan and Prime Minister His Majesty Paduka Seri Baginda Sultan Haji Hassanal Bolkiah Muizzuddin Wadala, who is the ruler of Brunei, is one of the richest men in the world.
How much oil is produced by Europe?
Europe produces 6,358,000 barrels of oil per day, which is approximately 7.9% of the world's total production of 80,247,000 barrels per day.
Are glaciers only found in cold, northern places?
No, glaciers are found in all 6 continents.
Why was the prime meridian established at Greenwich?
In 1675, the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, England, was established to study determination of longitude. In 1884, an international conference established the prime meridian as the longitudinal line that passes through the Royal Observatory. The United Kingdom and United States had been using Greenwich as the prime meridian for several decades before the conference.
What type of rocks are formed from particles?
Sedimentary rocks are formed by the accumulation and squeezing together of layers of sediment. Particles of rock or remains of plant and animal life, at the bottom of rivers, lakes, and oceans or even on land. The continual accumulation of more and more layers of sediment places a great amount of pressure on the lowest layers of sediment and, over time, compresses them into rock.
How does a GPS unit know where I am?
Individual Global Positioning System, GPS, units on the Earth receive information from AU's military-run system of 24 satellites that circle the Earth and provide precise time and location data. The individual GPS unit receives data from 3 or more satellites that triangulate its absolute location on the Earth's surface. If you are carrying such a device, your absolute location is the same as that of the device.
What is the busiest airport outside of the United States?
Heathrow Airport in London, England, has more than 62 million passengers passing through the various terminals annually. This is followed by Charles de Gaulle International Airport near Paris, France, with 54 million travelers. And Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, with 47 million passengers.
Where is Acadiana?
In 1755, the British took control of Acadie, New Brunswick, Canada, and exiled the city's inhabitants. Forced to leave their homes, these people, known as Acadians, moved to Louisiana. The Acadians are still present in Louisiana, and their culture has produced famed food and music, called Cajun. The area in southern Louisiana where the Acadians still live is termed Acadiana.
What were some of the most destructive tornadoes in U.S. history?
Some of the worst tornadoes in U.S. history include, the Tri-State Tornado, which struck Missouri, Indiana, and Illinois in 1925, killing 695 people and injuring 2,027, the 1,840 Natchez tornado struck Mississippi, killing 317 people and causing injuries to another 109, and the St. Louis/East St. Louis tornado of 1,896 killed 296 people and injured 1,000.
What should I do in the event of an earthquake?
Duck, cover, and hold. Duck under a table, counter, or any area that can provide protection from falling objects. Cover the back of your head with your hands to help protect against flying debris. Hold onto the leg of the table or anything solid to ride out the shaking.
Which country has more languages than any other in the world?
Papua New Guinea is home to more than 700 different languages. The most common languages spoken there are Motu and Pidgin English.
How many people visit the Caribbean each year?
Approximately 35 million people visit the Caribbean's beautiful countries and islands.
What were Lewis and Clark looking for?
President Thomas Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and Army officer William Clark to search for a Northwest Passage, a waterway that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Beginning in May 1804 and lasting through September 1806. The two men and their expedition party traveled through the uncharted Louisiana Territory and the Oregon Territory. Though they did not locate a Northwest Passage, Lewis and Clark documented the geography of the West.
Where are the highest rivers in the world?
The highest rivers are in Tibet, where there are two that stand out from all the rest. The Ading River at 20,013 feet, 6,100 meters, and Brahmaputra River at 19,751 feet, 6,020 meters.
What do B, C and AD stand for?
In our modern calendar, the year 0 represents the year of the birth of Jesus Christ. Years before his birth are known as B, C, or before Christ. Years since his birth are known as AD or Anno Domini, the year of our Lord.
What was Gran Colombia?
After many wars against Spain for independence, Gran Colombia, led by Simon Bolívar, became an independent country in 1821. Gran Colombia consisted of the area that is now present-day Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, and Venezuela. In 1830, Gran Colombia was split into Colombia, which included Panama, Ecuador, and Venezuela.
How large a part of the Soviet Union was Russia?
While the Soviet Union consisted of 15 Soviet Socialist republics. The largest was the Russian Soviet Federated Socialist Republic, RSFSR. The RSFSR, also known as Russia, comprised 3/4 of the Soviet Union's territory and over half of its population.
Do things really disappear in the Bermuda Triangle?
The Bermuda Triangle, or Devil's Triangle, is a popular legend that suggests a supernatural or paranormal reason for a supposedly large number of missing aircraft and sea-going vessels within its area. The legend generally places the area of the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic Ocean, with its 3 corners located at Bermuda, Puerto Rico, and Miami, Florida. But you won't be able to find the Bermuda Triangle on a map since it is not a geographically or politically defined area, and its location is solely designated by the legend. Though the legend has circulated for at least a century, there seems to be little evidence that this area is subjected to anything but natural hazards and human error. Most of the evidence for the phenomena in the Bermuda Triangle stems from the disappearance of the 5 aircraft of Flight 19 in December 1945, as well as a search plane that was sent to find them. though the popular version of the disappearance of Flight 19 assumes a mysterious end. A mixture of missing navigational apparatus, human error, low fuel, and choppy seas most likely led to the squadron's disappearance and demise.
What is the largest building in the world in terms of floor space?
The Aalsmeer Flower Auction, in Aalsmeer, the Netherlands, is the largest building in the world in terms of floor space. It covers 99 hectares, 240 acres, in area.
Is it safe to stand in a doorway during an earthquake?
While a doorway is a nice, structurally sound place to be during an earthquake, officials have found that many people are injured when a door swings open and closed during an earthquake. So you may want to avoid standing in a place where your fingers can become crushed.
What was the first tunnel through the Alps?
The Mont Cenis Railroad Tunnel was the first tunnel through the Alps and the first major railroad tunnel in the world. Opened in 1871, the tunnel spanned 8.5 miles, 13.7 kilometers, and connected France and Italy.
How many volcanoes are in Europe?
There are more than 100 volcanoes in Europe.
Who are the Sunni and Shiite Muslims?
The Sunni and Shiite are two sects of Islam. About 85% of Muslims are Sunnis, while Shiism is especially prevalent in Iran. After Muhammad's death, two relatives claimed to succeed him. Their followers developed into the two sects.
How much energy does one bolt of lightning contain?
A bolt of lighting contains enough energy to light a 100-watt light bulb for 3 months.
Where does it rain the most?
Mt. Wailea, on the island Kauai in Hawaii, receives a whopping average of 472 inches. 1,200 centimeters, of rain a year. That's over 39 feet 12 meters of rain per year.
What was the last Central American country to obtain its independence?
In 1981, Belize, formerly known as British Honduras, became the last North American country to obtain independence.
Why do some cultures kill infants?
Infanticide is the practice of killing an infant. For centuries, various cultures around the globe used infanticide as a form of population control. Most commonly because their limited food supply could only feed a certain number of humans. Because of cultural biases, female infants were more often victims of infanticide. The practice of infanticide still occurs today.
Where did Gauguin live?
The French painter Paul Gauguin moved to Tahiti in 1891 and later to other islands in French Polynesia to escape European civilization.
How many American troops are stationed in South Korea?
Currently, 22,500 U.S. troops still occupy South Korea, but only 160 are actually stationed in the demilitarized zone.
How many desalination plants are there?
There are approximately 13,000 plants located throughout the world. Saudi Arabia alone accounts for 24% of the world output of fresh water from desalination.
Whose body was preserved and then hand-carried for 9 months to the coast of Africa?
Dr. David Livingstone, the world-famous explorer of Africa, died while exploring the area now known as Zambia. His body was embalmed with sand and his heart was buried under a nearby tree. His body was then wrapped in cloth and covered with tar to waterproof it. Loyal servants carried his body for 9 months, all the way to the eastern coast of Africa, where the body was then transported to Britain on the HMS Vulture. On April 18, 1874, his body was buried in Westminster Abbey.
Which states are split into multiple time zones?
Florida, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee are split into Eastern and Central Time. Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Texas are split between Central and Mountain Time. Idaho and Oregon are split between Mountain and Pacific Time.
How much rain does it take to make a flood?
The amount varies widely for different areas. In some U.S. western deserts, or in some large urban areas. Just a few minutes of strong rain will cause a flash flood in canyons and low-lying areas. In areas prone to greater rainfall amounts, it often takes quite a bit more rain. Sometimes a few days or weeks' worth, to cause rivers to overflow and dams to fill up, raising concerns of those who live downstream. Areas that normally receive more rainfall have better natural drainage systems and are usually home to plants that readily absorb the extra water.
Why do they speak French in Quebec?
Most of Quebec speaks French because the French founded the city of Quebec, one of the oldest cities in North America, in the 17th century. Quebec served as the capital of the surrounding New France until the British took control of the territory in 1763, even though it was ruled by the British from the 18th century onward. The region that was once held by France has remained a center of French culture and language in North America. The differences in culture between the province of Quebec and the rest of Canada have been so extreme that there are strong secessionist forces within Quebec that want Quebec to become its own country. Though 2 referendums for Quebec's independence have been voted upon in Canada-wide elections, both the 1980 and 1995 referendums failed to pass. But these failures have not quieted Quebec's secessionist forces, and it is likely that future referendums will be held. If passed, many believe that the secession of Quebec would dissolve the loose Canadian Federation.
What caused the Bhopal disaster?
In December 1984, the U.S. owned Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal, India, leaked toxic chemicals, methyl isocyanate gas, that killed over 3,800 people. It was the worst industrial accident in history. Union Carbide paid a fine of $470 million to avoid facing criminal charges.
Why is the growth rate declining?
A big reason why the rate of growth is slowly declining is because people are delaying marriage longer. Also, the wide availability of contraception is having a positive impact on decreasing the number of unwanted births.
How much of Mexico's population lives in Mexico City?
Approximately 1/4 of Mexico's population lives in Mexico City's metropolitan area. Mexico City, Mexico's capital, is the largest metropolitan area in the Western Hemisphere, with a population of 19 million.
Why did Peru and Ecuador fight two wars in the 20th century?
When Ecuador split off from Gran Colombia in the 19th century, it signed a border agreement with Peru, defining its boundaries along the Marañón River. In 1941, Peru invaded Ecuador and occupied half the country for 10 days. Afterwards, a peace treaty was brokered and guaranteed by the United States, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. The United States mapped the border, leaving approximately 48 miles. 78 kilometers, of a line in the Cordillera del Condor area unmarked. The area became a site for dispute in 1941, and again in 1995.
How do I get to the refrigerator in the dark?
All maps are written on paper. When trying to reach the refrigerator at night, we do not smell our way to food. We use a map based on our memory of the room. If we stumble on our way, it is usually over a misplaced toy or shoe that we did not remember leaving there. Everyone has these kinds of maps in his or her mind. These mental maps help you find your way not only to the refrigerator in the dark, but also to the grocery store and to work. People not only have mental maps of common trips they make, but also of their city, country, and even the world. Every person's mental map is unique, based on how wide an area that person travels and their knowledge of the world.
What do the Sandwich Islands and Hawaiian Islands have in common?
The Sandwich Islands and Hawaiian Islands are actually the same set of islands. In 1778, when Captain James Cook discovered the islands, he named them the Sandwich Islands. Gradually, the islands began to be known by their indigenous name of Hawaii. Cook named the islands after his supporter, John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich.
What is Zoroastrianism?
Zoroastrianism is a religion that began in present-day Iran about 1000 BCE. It is based upon the teachings of the prophet Zoroaster and is an ancient religion that some believe may have influenced the later religions of Christianity and Islam.
How can a gazetteer help me find latitude and longitude?
A gazetteer is an index that lists the latitude and longitude of places within a specific region or across the entire world. Many atlases include a gazetteer, and some are published separately.
What is the world's longest freshwater lake?
Lake Tanganyika is 420 miles, 676 kilometers, long, the longest freshwater lake in the world. But it's only between 10 and 45 miles, 16 to 72 kilometers, wide. It lies on the border between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Tanzania. It is also the world's second deepest lake, with a maximum depth of 4,710 feet, 1,436 meters.
What do modern geographers do?
While there are a few jobs with the title of geographer, many geography students use their analytical ability and knowledge of the world to work in a variety of fields. Geography students often take jobs in fields such as city planning, cartography, marketing, real estate, environment, and teaching.